to go.
That's right, Buc Bro Casters. That's the name of this season. Giving it up way too easy. Giving it up on defense. Giving it to the other team. Jameis throwing interceptions all over the place. Man, what can we do to stop giving it up? But we'll get into that in a little bit. I want to welcome you guys back to the Buc Bros podcast. We are on episode 10, guys. Double digits. But first and foremost, I want to give a shout out to our subscribers. Thanks for tuning in every week. We here at the Buc Bro podcast love you guys, and thank you for your support. For those who are new or tuning in this week, we here at the Buc Bros podcast, we're here for all our Buc fans to give you game analysis, game predictions, overreactions, opponent analysis, letdowns, breakdowns, get downs. You want it? We'll give it to you. So tune in every week, guys, and hit that subscribe button. Well, let's get into it. This is our quarter one, and for those of you who tuned in before or previously, you know this is where we do our game analysis of the previous week. So let's jump into the Cincinnati game. I think, when there's only really one big story coming from this game, and of course it's the meltdown that was Jameis Winston's performance. 18 of 35 for 276 yards. That doesn't sound terrible. One touchdown. But everybody knows really what the story was, the 4 interceptions. Oh, my God. That makes it 10 interceptions on the season. And he didn't even start the first 3 games. That's the most in the NFL. Tied with Sam Darnold, our rookie. So, and it, for Jameis, man, it cost him his job. And it might have costed him his job and future here in Tampa Bay. Or for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. What a disappointing performance from him. And when you look at those interceptions that he had, the 4 that he had, this wasn't a case of receivers running the wrong route. It wasn't a case of, balls getting tipped up in the air, just having to, be picked off by the opposing team. It wasn't due to, just mistiming. These were really bad interceptions. Poor decisions, terrible throws. This was, no doubt, his worst performance ever as a Tampa Bay Buccaneer, and it probably couldn't have come at a worse time for him. He's already got, we were coming off a good win against the Browns, but it was a game that we almost lost due to him turning the ball over in our side of the field in overtime. Fortunately, pulled that out, but what we were hoping for, especially going into preseason, he had a really good preseason, and he limited those turnovers. I don't think he had one in the preseason. So the hope, obviously, going into the season was he was going to improve, and like he was improving at the end of 2017. He would have to sit out those first 3 games, but when he came back, it was time for him to start. That he would just progress from the preseason, and we would see him flourish into what we were hoping when we drafted him number 1 overall, our franchise quarterback. And obviously now, doesn't seem to have happened. As Damian Woody put it, zebras don't really change their stripes, and he's not really changing his either. This is what he was known for in college. It's what he's been known for his entire NFL career, and it seems that that's a reputation that's going to follow him into this future unless he does something drastic, and I just don't see that happening. Jameis has had 71 turnovers in his entire NFL career, so that's spanning from 2015 to middle of 2018 season. That's tied for second most in the NFL. The only person with more, Blake Bortles. And nobody's championed him to be the franchise quarterback in Jacksonville. So when you're in company with Blake Bortles, you're doing something wrong. But let's digress. Get back into this game analysis. What's really interesting, and I looked at, I again have to give credit to Greg Auman on this when I was doing some research. Under Cutter's coaching career for the Buccaneers have lost 7 games where we have scored 30 or more points. From 2000 to 2015, before Cutter took over in 2016, there were 7 teams altogether that lost games where they scored 30 or more points. The Buccaneers have 7 of those in 2.5 seasons. So obviously that screams to you, one, terrible defense, which we've already discussed here multiple times on this podcast, and that's just going to be something we're going to have to deal with all season. This defense isn't going to drastically get any better. They'll have their good performances from here to there, sure, every team does, but we are not going to lead the league in any defensive category this season. Maybe JPP will be amongst the leaders in sacks, but this defense is going to give it up. They're going to give up points. That's just going to be that. But on the flip side, we have a dynamic offense. Let me read you guys these numbers. And you tell me if this is a losing performance. 585 yards of total offense. 27 first downs. 34 points. 400 yards passing. 450 yards passing. 126 on the ground. Not a whole lot of balance there, but still. Yeah, we lost that game. And we all know why. There isn't really, obviously it's a little too... We all know the reason why we lost that game was due to the ridiculous turnovers that Jameis committed. But also, some of that has to deal with the defense not being able to stop anybody. But they did a really good job. They kept us in the game and almost got us back to the point where we did tie the game up late in the fourth quarter. Then they couldn't cover A.J. Green as they just marched down the field and kicked the winning field goal. But that's beside the point. The reason we lost this game is because of Jameis Winston. And because of that, Jameis Winston was finally benched. He should have been benched earlier in the game, in my opinion. But that's neither here nor there. And then, Fitzmagic comes back in, brings his team back. It was a game we should have won, and it's disappointing that we lost. If there's one word I have to say about this game in Cincinnati, it's disappointment. And I'm sure this team has felt disappointment other than the first 2 weeks, the majority of this season has been a disappointment because there's too much talent on this team for it to lose games against to lose very winnable games like we just did against Cincinnati. So until that gets fixed, like I said, the defense isn't going to suddenly become a dynamic or dominant unit in the NFL this year. But I do think they're going to improve. The thing that has to improve with this team has to be the turnovers. Fitzmagic, I just think, gives us a more consistent presence than Jameis going forward. And obviously Cutter has made that decision to start Fitzmagic, at least for the Carolina game. Fitzmagic has also kind of had a tendency to turn the ball over on repeated occasions. Take the Pittsburgh game, the Pittsburgh second quarter, for instance, where he had 3 interceptions. But you can just tell that this team plays with so much more energy with him behind center than they've been with Jameis. And I think that screams leadership, in my opinion. Ryan Fitzpatrick seems to have leadership coming from that position where it's not just talked about leadership, it's an actual presence of leadership. And going forward, and I think if Cutter really wants to save his job here as a Tampa Bay Buccaneers coach, he needs to play Fitzpatrick going forward this season. We could talk about next season and the offseason, whether or not Jameis should come back or not. But at least going forward, we got to start Fitzmagic. So, all right, before we head into the second quarter, just real quick, want to hit on some hits and misses from my previous game predictions. So if you guys remember from the previous episode, I had predicted that our offense was going to light it up. We just had a huge, advantage from having the number 1 overall offense and number 1 overall passing offense versus their subpar defense. And I think that was definitely a hit for my prediction. Not only was it a hit, it was clearly an advantage. 585 yards total. That is a franchise record. That's amazing, guys. To put up that kind of amount of yards, and that's almost, that's 6 football fields almost, right? So really good job on the offense from there. Mike Evans had over 170 yards. I believe Adam Humphries had about 97. Djax got into the mix with that one bomb from Jameis. The ground game, that was one thing we had talked about in trying to limit turnovers, is we needed to get the ground game running. Unfortunately, Ronald Jones got hurt during this game, injured his hamstring. Wasn't much of a factor. But Peyton Barber had probably one of his best games as a Tampa Bay Buccaneer this season. 86 yards rushing for a touchdown. He had some really nice runs there at the beginning and kind of throughout the game as well. We had 126 yards overall on the ground. So at least we got some production out of our run game to help balance with our dominant passing game. So from that standpoint, I was definitely on with my predictions that our offense was going to run all over and pass all over that subpar Cincinnati defense. But I also predicted in our matchups to watch from the previous week that our tight ends were going to have a field day against their linebackers, their safeties. And I had mentioned that Vontaze Burfict was going to play. Obviously, that was a misconception. He did not play this game. But that was a miss, really, in my opinion. Yeah, OJ had some numbers. He had 4 receptions for 86 yards and a touchdown. That's a decent performance. But Cameron Brate only had 1 catch for 13 yards. So that's not even breaking 100 yards overall from the tight ends. And we had 450 pass yards. So in that matter, I definitely missed on that. I definitely thought we were going to do a better job utilizing our tight ends to our advantage. And we didn't. Now, granted, it's really hard to do that when your quarterback is missing wide open receivers and throwing it to the other team, like we did for 3 quarters. But nonetheless, that was something that was a matchup I thought we would exploit as well. And although we got some production, we didn't get the production that I thought we were going to put up. So on that, I definitely missed that. And obviously, I missed my overall prediction as well. I think I said Tampa Bay was going to win 31. Cincinnati, we scored 24. Close on the score for Tampa Bay, and they scored 34. But unfortunately, Cincinnati added that 37 to send us into the loss column at 3-4 overall as we head into week 10 here with the Carolina Panthers. So anyway, that's my game reaction from the Cincinnati game, guys. I'm sending it to John now for our overreactions from last week. Hit him up, John.
What up, Buc Bros? Unfortunately, John couldn't make it with us this week, but that's okay. I got you guys with my own overreactions after our game against Cincinnati. Overreaction number 1, we're going to the playoffs. That's right. We saw it late in the last game. The team rallied behind Fitz. We almost came back, even after having a 4 turnover performance. The Bucs get new, invigorated with Fitz behind center, and we make it to the playoffs. Now, I'm not saying we're going to win out the division. The Saints look pretty strong, and they have a great team, but I think we sneak into that wild card spot. We're going 9-7 with Fitzmagic. Hopefully that's enough to put us into the wild cards. I think it is. Right now, we're only a game back, but there are a lot of teams in the mix, and it's still early. We'll see how it shapes out. Big win against Carolina coming up with Fitzmagic under center. It's going to rally the team around him. We're going to have big things going for us moving forward. Overreaction number 2. I think we're going to see some big names drop like flies at the end of the offseason. Name number 1, Jameis Winston. Now, I know I was touting him earlier last episode saying that we should give him the 5th-year option, but I'm not going off of facts and logic. I'm going off of overreactions. He's gone. He's gone after this season. He's going to have to Uber his way to the seafood section of Publix to get a job after this. You can't have a turnover machine on your team, and that's what Jameis Winston is. Nobody likes him on the team anymore. You can kind of see it. Deshaun Jackson looking at him like, what the fuck is he eating? Not a W, that's for sure. He's 2-9 after his eat a W speech. He lost the team there. Team doesn't play behind him. He's got to go. Big name number 2 dropping like a fly, Gerald McCoy. While I love the man to death, and I think he served the Bucs well, his on-field production hasn't been there. He only has 1.5 sacks on the season, and he's not even playing anymore. When he's on the field, I don't see him. When he's off the field, I see even less of him. So I haven't seen his name called. We got a new leader in JPP who's racking up the sacks. Gerald McCoy, while I love you, you're not worth what we're paying you right now, and you got to go. He's got to go. I think we're going to see some other big names drop. I don't know. I think Cutter still has a chance to save his job if we salvage some of this season. We'll see how it goes. But those are my two overreactions. We're a playoff team. Big names going to drop like flies at the end of the offseason. We're headed into halftime. We're bringing up a new segment called Behind Enemy Lines, where we have our local Carolina expert, Justin, bringing you his opinion on the Carolina game coming up. He's a Carolina Panthers fan, so we tolerate him. But we'll see how he views Carolina's attack versus the Buccaneers defense and vice versa. We'll see what he thinks. Justin, you're on the floor.
Touchdown Tampa Bay, Mike Evans. Bucs lead 6-0. Again, fire those cannons. 6 times.
What's up, Bryce? What's up, Brian? Justin here. Going to give you all the Panthers side of things. I got my friend Cammy Cam here. We'll be eating W's at the end of this game, at the end of the weekend. All right, so my 3 keys for this game. First key, Panthers offensive line. It's the same first key every single week for us. Never know how they're going to turn out, but if they do solid, it will open up that backfield for C-Mac, who's been killing it, and then open up the running opportunities for Cam, which once that gets going, it's going to be hard to stop. Second key of the game, Greg Olsen. We didn't get the ball a lot last weekend. If we can get him more touches, and I think that'll just cause some more problems for that. He killed at the end of the game, came through huge for us, but I'd still like to see him get the ball more coming off that injury a couple weeks ago. Third key of the game, rookie DJ Moore, 5 receptions for 90 yards against the Baltimore Ravens in his debut. Steve Smith said he's the new Steve Smith, which is a lot coming from someone who just talks a lot of trash. But if he can continue that and come through in this game, I think it'll open up things for Funchess. We haven't had a good receiving core on both sides of the field. So if we can do that, it'll be interesting to see if we can kind of keep the ball rolling like we did at the end of the second half last weekend. So predicted score, 23-17. Panthers cover the spread at home, extend that winning streak to 10 games at Carolina in Bank of America Stadium. Cammy Cam's going to be eating some W's. Good luck with Fitzmagic. He's the freaking man. Jameis sucks. Go Panthers.
What's up, bros? We're into the fourth quarter. As my fellow Buc Bro likes to say, the money quarter. Now, we just heard Justin give us his views on the Carolina Panthers and give us some tips on how they might win. Let's flip the tables now and see what tips I can give to you guys to see a Buc win in Carolina this week. Now, the Carolina Panthers are 5-2, coming off an impressive win against the Ravens, where they beat the Baltimore Ravens 36-21. And as we all know, the Buccaneers come in at 3-4 after a heartbreaking loss where Fitzmagic almost saved the day. Instead, a late field goal for the Cincinnati Bengals left us with a 37-34 score and a sour taste in our mouths. So I'm not going to get into the last game. We heard it on the game review from Bryce earlier this podcast. Instead, we're going to jump right into my keys to the game against the Carolina Panthers. And I think it's no surprise that number one is turnovers. We've given up way too many turnovers. In fact, we are last in the league right now in turnover margin with -13. If you look at Carolina, they're actually ranked in the top 10 in turnover margin with a +6. We need to get this under control, guys. We can't keep having 4 turnover games and expecting our offense to bail us out. And I think there's reason to blame on both sides of the ball. Obviously, our offense with Jameis has provided 4 turnovers in the past 2 games. In fact, ever since week 2, we've had a negative turnover margin in every game. Obviously, we've lost 4 out of 5 of those. We won against the Cleveland Browns when we had a -3 turnover margin. This is not a recipe for success. We do not have a good enough defense to help us with those turnovers. So offensively, we need to take care of the ball way better. We cannot allow our offense to throw 4 picks like Jameis did last week or have more fumbles, 2 picks and 2 fumbles like we did against the Cleveland Browns. We need to hang on to the ball. Now, I'll get a little bit into how we can do this coming up. But offensively, obviously, just hold on to the ball. But there's also reason to blame for this on the defense, which is we've only created 6 turnovers all year. All year. We've played 7 games. We have less than a turnover a game. Again, not a recipe for success. We need to be able to put our players in position on defense that can help them create turnovers, whether that's putting linebackers or nickels into a slant, getting pressure in the face, tipping balls. Do what you can to provide the defense some turnovers. I believe that scheme, I believe we have players that can create turnovers. We just haven't been doing it. Yes, I like the fourth down stops. I think we've been 3 for 4 in the last 2 games on fourth down stops, which is amazing. Yes, I like the 3 and outs. We've been doing a lot better on getting our defense off the field on third downs. Love seeing that. We were last in the league that last year. This year we're much better. But we need to create more turnovers. So on both sides of the ball, it's bad. Obviously, if you have a negative 13 turnover margin, both sides of the ball are contributing to that. We need to hang on to the ball better offensively, defensively. We need to cause more havoc that allows us to create those turnovers. We need to be in positions that allow us to create those turnovers. So I'm looking in this game for, at worst, a split turnover margin. That is, turnover margin of 0. Hopefully we get a few more turnovers than, or we create a few more turnovers than we give up. Key number 2 to this game, easy for me. Christian McCaffrey, we need to limit his influence. He is, in my opinion, the best offensive player that the Carolina Panthers have, and that is solely because he's just a crazy dual threat out of the backfield. He can run on you, he can come out of the backfield and catch a screen, he can line up wide and beat people over the top. The kid is insane, and every time I watch him, I see him turn 2 to 3 yard gains into 8 or 9 yard gains. He has a knack for shedding defenders, getting off of would-be tacklers, and just elongating plays. So the Buccaneers defense need to get a good scheme. I'm a little bit worried because our linebackers are not known for their great coverage skills. Our best linebacker, according to PFF, Levante David, is known more for his, tackles for loss, shooting a gap and getting a runner, than his coverage skills. Now, most of the McCaffrey runs I've seen have been sweeps. I think we'll be okay on those because we have those fast linebackers. We seem to thwart those sweep plays quite well. What I'm most worried about is McCaffrey out of the backfield as a receiver, whether he's catching a screen, whether he's catching a little out route, or if he's doing a wheel route and gets over the top of one of our linebackers and catches it over the shoulder. That worries me the most. So we really need to come up with a good game plan against him. I don't think you're going to outright stuff him. I think, honestly, even if he has 100 yards from scrimmage, which he's averaging now, I think that's good for us. We just need to keep him out of the end zone and limit his influence on big splash plays. On the flip side, my third key to the game is we need to involve our running game more. I think Peyton Barber looked really good last week against the Bengals, and I think he's had his best 2 games the past 2 games. We just need to do a better job of blocking. We need to do a better job of involving him in the game. I think every week we're more and more one-dimensional offense, and because of this, relating to my first key, we're putting a lot of pressure on our quarterbacks to deliver us everything. The quarterbacks feel the pressure. They kind of throw into tight windows that causes turnovers. They might not have to throw that, and we might secure the ball better if we try to run better. Peyton Barber looked good to me, honestly. I thought he was hitting the hole well. He had a couple of nice 12, 13-yard runs. Let's get him more involved. Let's get him involved early in the game. Let's establish this running game, and let's start securing the ball and taking pressure off of our QB. I think if we can do that, and I'll go out on a limb and say, if the Buccaneers cumulatively, not just a single rusher, but cumulatively have more than 100 yards rushing and provided that we have a split or better turnover margin, we'll win this game. I think we'll sneak out with a win against Carolina. Granted, both of those happen. So that's my prediction. 100-plus yards rushing, 0 or positive turnover margin. We'll scrape out a win. As always, we like to provide a homer prediction on the game score. I'll go with a close one, 24-20. Buccaneers scrape it out. That would be great for us. We'd be 4-4 at the midway point of the season. It looks like our schedule lightens up a little bit in terms of records for the teams remaining. I think we have, 2 teams with a winning record, or 3 teams with a winning record. So if we can scrape out this win, it's looking good for the remainder of the season. We'll see what happens. I'm looking for turnovers, I'm looking for rushing, and I'm looking for limiting Christian McCaffrey. That'll wrap it up for this episode, guys. Again, please like, comment, subscribe if you enjoyed it. And again, next time, we'll be with you guys next week reviewing this game and looking towards the future. As always, go Bucs. We'll see you next week.